Hi, I'm Meg from Cook with Meg, and today I'm going to teach you how to make basic pancakes. Such a great staple. You can have them for breakfast, a snack, lunch, dinner, supper, treats, you name it. We'll eat them any time of the day, and it's a great recipe just to have in your back pocket using ingredients that you probably already have in your kitchen. So if you've never made homemade, scratch-made pancakes, you're about to learn. Are you ready? Let's do it. Okay, the first thing in every Cook with Meg class, I wanna make sure you've got your recipe. I have mine printed and clipped up here. I've got it right in the corner of the screen. You will see me referencing it. It's important, that's our roadmap. Whether yours is printed or written out or on a phone or a tablet, it's just a good practice to get into having a recipe handy so that you can keep everything straight. For today's recipe, we are gonna need some tools. We'll show you some now and some in a bit, but namely, you need a bowl for your pancake batter, and we're gonna use a whisk today. Whether you prefer a whisk or a spatula, I like a whisk to get everything all put together. You'll need some measuring cups, some measuring spoons, and a frying pan and a way to cook those pancakes, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now that we've looked at our tools, we're gonna talk ingredients, and we're gonna dive right in. Not literally to the ingredients, but we're gonna start with some flour, all-purpose flour. For a basic pancake recipe, we're going to need 1 cup of flour. So I'm gonna just dip right in. I keep my flour in a canister. If you keep yours in a bag, you're gonna take a 1 cup measure, and I use the back of a knife. The reason I do that is because flour has a lot of little air pockets and air bubbles. And so I kind of just like to press it down and then using the flat side of the knife, drag it across. Short of using a kitchen scale, I want to make sure that I've got a really good, as close to perfect measure as possible. And into the bowl it goes. Fill my sink. That's it for flour. I'm doing a single batch of pancakes. Depending on the size of pancakes, we'll talk about how many it makes. But for now, we're just going in with 1 cup of flour. You are more than welcome to double this batch. You could make a bunch of pancakes and they freeze beautifully. They keep in the fridge beautifully. It's perfect. All right, we need to sweeten the batter a little bit. So we're using white sugar, granulated white sugar, 2 tablespoons. If you don't have white sugar, maybe you have brown sugar. You could use a little brown sugar as well. And then we need some baking powder. So this is what's considered the dry ingredients. We need our flour. That's going to be the main base of the pancake. We need a little bit of sweetness just to bring the flavor to another like special homemade layer. But we need to help our pancakes puff up and rise to the sky. And in that case, we are using what's called a chemical leavener, and that would be called baking powder. We have baking powder and baking soda. Pancakes need baking powder, and we need 2 teaspoons. So let's find our teaspoon. Mine was a little wet because I just washed it. Make sure you dry everything. Clean hands. You're drying your measuring cups, your measuring spoons. I'm not gonna drag a knife across the top. I'm just gonna give it a little tap. You want it like relatively even. If you're more comfortable, if you have like a clean hand, you could drag your finger across the top to make sure it's like perfectly even. But if you're a little over with baking powder, it's okay. A little teeny bit, you're okay. I'm looking for my salt. I need a little salt, even though this is a baking recipe and essentially a sweet recipe, we still want to put a pinch of salt. In this case, we want to do about a 1/2 teaspoon. Salt helps elevate flavor. Salt brings out the flavor. It's such a good and important ingredient when it comes to cooking and baking. So I have my whisk, just giving this a little mixy mix. We don't have to sift the flour. We're actually using a whisk sort of in its place and helping to properly mix these all together. Now let me tell you a little story about why we mix our dry ingredients so much before we add in the wet stuff. The reason for that is because muffins and pancakes, we never want to overmix. I mean, we don't want to overmix really anything, but especially when it comes to muffins and pancakes, we want there to be, believe it or not, a couple of little lumps and bumps still in the batter. That's actually going to help these puff up and rise. So we do a lot of the mixing when it's still dry or when it's separate and still wet. When it comes together, very, very little mixing. So let's give that a mix. We want to make sure the baking powder is all throughout the flour. We want to make sure that the salt is through the flour. The sugar has made its way through the flour. That's why we do the mixing at this point. Okay, next up, we need to add milk, egg, a tablespoon of melted butter, and whisk it to combine. Could this be easier? I don't think so, but I am gonna do a little shimmy here and a swap of my bowls. I have one egg, this is a large egg, and I'm gonna give my egg a crack into a bowl. I'm gonna give my hands a rinse because I got a little egg on my hands. Not a big deal, but we do always wanna make sure we're staying nice and clean in the kitchen. And if you have a little whisk or a fork, let's just give this a quick little whisk. We're just mixing the egg a little bit because remember what we talked about? We don't want to overmix when it gets into the bowl. And if we had to take all the time to take that egg from yolk and white and combined, that would be a lot of extra mixing that we don't want to have to do. So we're just going to help it out by giving it a quick little mix first, a whisk first. How much milk do we need? We need 1 cup. Here's my 1 cup. Let's pour that in. I have 2% milk. You can use whatever milk you have on hand. 1%, 2% whole milk. You can use canned milk, powdered milk. It all works. It all works. So we're gonna pour that in. I'm tempted to mix. I'm not going to mix. I'm gonna add the 1 egg. I wanna mix. I'm not mixing yet. And we need 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Margarine works, oil works. We need a fat. We need something that's a fat. And I put this in the microwave. Oh, it smells so good. But I also left it on the counter for a minute or so because I definitely don't want to add scalding hot melted butter into raw eggs, because then we'll get scrambled eggs, and we're not making scrambled eggs, we're making pancakes. So just make sure your butter is not super hot. I'm gonna dip my tablespoon in, and we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. You'll see I have a little bit extra. That's okay, we're gonna use a little bit of that when we go to make our pancakes. So we're not over mixing at all. I'm almost finished. I want to go up the sides because I do see a little flour try to escape my party. And that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Done. What? You're thinking there's no way, Meg. How is that mixed? We still see lumps and we still see bumps. That's okay. Lumpity bumpity is welcome at this party. I am going to grab a spatula. I'm going to scrape down the sides, and I'll meet you back here in 1 minute with a frying pan, and let's make some pancakes. Hi friends, we are back. We have a frying pan, and I have my induction burner in front of me, which allows me to cook right to you. I have my pancake batter, which I've actually just poured into a Pyrex. This is just a measuring cup. You could pour them, or you could scoop them when we go to bake or fry the pancakes. It makes 2 cups of batter. I also did it because I wanted to see exactly how much. So 1 batch makes 2 cups of batter. I also have a nice good sized frying pan here. So you'll want a nice non-stick frying pan. And we have that little bit of leftover butter. So if you don't have any leftover butter or margarine, you could absolutely use non-stick spray. But I have this little pastry brush, and I just want to brush the butter kind of around the pan because this is where I am going to put my pancakes down. I have the heat of my burner heating up to about a medium, but we do need to be careful when it comes to making pancakes that we don't have the heat too hot. You will notice that you have to kind of maneuver the heat up and down a little bit, and that's okay. So we'll just take our time and we'll wait for the heat to get up a little bit, and then we'll start to add our batter. There is one thing that you will notice on the recipe, and that's vanilla. If I didn't for today, but if you want, you can also add, right when you're adding the milk and the butter and the egg, a little teaspoon, maybe like 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and it gives it just a nice extra little chef's kiss flavor. So that's a basic pancake batter. I have my little bowl of chocolate chips. Maybe I want to make a few of these chocolate chip. Maybe I want to make some banana pancakes. We'll talk about that. But I also have 1/3 cup scoop measure, and that's what I'm going to use to get my pancakes happening. So I'm just going to put a couple tablespoons. I like having them in a measuring cup because it really is a nice way for me to control how much goes in. I'm not getting batter everywhere. I'm going to do 3, and I'm making them fairly, I want to say fairly tiny. They're not huge. I want to make a lot of pancakes. I also am going to actually grab a little plate and have a plate ready to go. And I'm going to grab a spoon rest. You just use whatever you have in your kitchen just to set this down on so that I keep my kitchen fairly clean. We can always clean it up. So there is a plate to catch the pancakes that are cooked. I've got a pancake flipper. This one is a non-stick. This is technically called a fish spatula turner. I would use one that's non-stick if you can, so you're not aggravating your non-stick pan. And now we wait. We hang out. What we're looking for are bubbles to start to form on the surface of the pancake. So they are nowhere ready to flip. It's about patience. It's about time. It's about monitoring the heat so that it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and we don't want to burn them. I also want to let you know that if you are way more comfortable to do one at a time, you do you. You do as little or as many as you're comfy doing. 3 might be a little overwhelming. We could start with 1. You could then go to 2. Maybe 2 is your limit. If you want to add things to the pancakes, you add it when one side's cooking and this side is still raw. Obviously, if I go to flip it, I can't add anything like chocolate chips or blueberries or banana because it's not going to go into the pancake. Some people like to actually fold all their ingredients and put it right into the batter, which is great. I like having little dishes of different toppers so that I can make multiple flavors depending on who's eating them. So I might do 3 or 4 or 5 plain pancakes, and then maybe the last few I do a few chocolate chips right now. I'd sprinkle a couple on. I'll do it here in a minute. This batch is going to be plain. I love bananas, thinly sliced bananas, delicious. Thinly sliced apple, delicious. Cinnamon, little cinnamon sugar, amazing. There are so many ways you can customize your pancakes. Now, I'm going to do the first little look, and what I'm starting to see, and I'll zoom in as close as I can. I'm actually going to lift this right off so you can take a look. We're starting to see that the pancake is setting, and setting means that it's no longer shiny. It was very shiny when it goes in as glossy, shiny batter. It's starting to get a little dull or a little opaque or a little matte in color. The sides are starting to set up in that they are starting to look a little more cooked. Oh yes, and that's the trick. You kind of shimmy your non-stick pancake flipper, and if you can kind of shimmy underneath and take a peek, oh my friends, these are looking gorgeous. So the shimmy, are you ready? The flip. Now, truth be told, that guy could have gone a couple of extra seconds. I'll check this one. This one's looking a little better. So you kind of want to hold your frying pan and get under it and then flip over. Shimmy, flip. Those are adorable. They're so cute. And you know what? I love this size. This isn't too big of a pancake. You could make a nice little stack. These would make great snacks on their own. A little peanut butter, a little jam, roll it up with a little turkey or cheese. Pancakes are such a blank canvas for awesome. So I'm gonna hold this up again so you can see. Now we're cooking the underside. So we're just gonna let it go. Traditionally, we cook pancakes for anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes per side, depending how big they are, depending how thick and puffy they get. There is the, what is the expression? Like the first pancake is always ruined. I think the first pancake should always go to the cook. And even if it's not perfect, does it matter? Absolutely not. We love all the food we make. We've made it with love. We've worked really hard at it. So please don't throw anything away. Even if it's not the prettiest pancake to look at, I'm sure it tastes amazing. So that's it. There's my pancake. I've got 1, 2, 3 I've made. You can use a plate. You could use a baking dish and put these onto a baking dish. Keeping them in the oven, we would always keep them at a really low oven, like 200 degrees. I'm gonna do more here. Now, I will tell you, that's pretty hot, and you're gonna know that because watch what happens when I add a little more butter. You hear that sizzle? These pancakes are going to cook a lot faster. So I've turned my heat down just a little tiny bit because again, with pancakes, you want them to fry and you want them to be golden and you want them to be delicious, but you want the whole pancake to cook, not just around the edges with the middle being raw and the outside being burned. You want the whole thing to cook. So again, we're gonna just take our time. This time, to show you, I'm gonna put a few chocolate chips, and this is where it gets fun. So we'll just sprinkle a few little chocolate chips. I've adjusted my heat slightly, and what that means, I was at a 5 out of 10, I'm now a 4. Brought it down to a 4. You could put banana slices, you could put blueberries, you can go a little or a lot, you can do any nuts, fruit and nuts. I mean, you can literally, the sky's the limit when it comes to making fun pancakes. And when pancakes are finished, of course, we enjoy them right away. We eat them. They keep beautifully. I talk an awful lot about that, but they keep beautifully in the fridge. They keep even better in the freezer. If they don't have anything in them, so if they're a plain pancake like these could even potentially go into a toaster or a toaster oven. They're so pretty. I want to try a bite of one. Oh, perfectly puffy. Just a tiny bit of sweetness. If you used a little bit of vanilla, you'll get that. Just that little hint of sweet vanilla flavor. They smell amazing. They taste incredible. You can serve them a million different ways. Whether you're a honey person or a maple syrup person, cinnamon sugar, Nutella, peanut butter, I mean, we could go on and on. Whipped cream, if you had that, if you were having a really special occasion, fresh fruit, a little bit of jam, pancakes, they go and they go and they go and they go. So I'm gonna keep you here until I flip these ones so we can see how this works. When you flip a chocolate chip pancake or a blueberry pancake, you do need to be prepared that a little bit of that is going to run. A little bit of the chocolate is going to run. If it's blueberry, a little bit of the blueberry is going to run. So likely more on one side than the other, you will see the bits of sort of smeared chocolate, which is delicious. So don't you worry. We're going to take a peek. We're not ready. A peek is a great first way to test, am I ready to flip it? And if you have a flipping disaster, don't worry about it. You get that underneath, you flip it as best you can. Make sure you're being safe. Make sure that you've got your hand on the frying pan. Gives you a little bit more control. I'll flip this one. Whoa. It could have gone a couple minutes longer. So if you flip it and you notice that it's not as brown and golden as you want, that's okay. We can always flip it back to the first side again and give it a couple more minutes. It's not a big deal. And if they're a little more pale than golden, they're still good. We just want to make sure that they're fully cooked all the way through. Shimmy that one over. Ooh, looking good. You'll notice, I don't know if I talked about it, but I definitely added a little more butter right at the beginning. You heard it sizzle. So you do want to make sure that your pan retains or remains slippery, whether it's a little more butter, whether you take it off the heat. Always take it off the heat if you're going to spray, like over the sink. Spray a little more nonstick spray. That is a can of spray, and we don't really ever want to spray it right down into near a burner. So take your pan off the heat, spray it, put it back on the burner. Always keep your pan relatively slippery. It's going to help the pancake making process in a big way. Give these another minute or so. We'll let you see what the underside looks like before we move on and let you go to make your own pancakes. This has been fun. Obviously, if you're making much bigger pancakes, they will take a little longer to cook. But it's all about patience, honestly. You may have to adjust the heat up and down slightly. Pancakes are amazing, and I'm very, very excited for you to make some. For you, for your family. Ooh, they're puffing. These ones are getting really puffy. They're gorgeous. All right, any questions, you let me know. A couple of things while this finishes. As far as wrap up, I like to keep a bowl of hot soapy water in the sink, and I like to place everything that I just used, we call it the cook, everything that I used for the cook goes down into that. I'm going to clean everything up. I will let my frying pan completely cool off before I go to wash it. So if it means just leaving it on to the stove or down in your sink, let it cool completely before you go to wash it to stay safe. Oh yeah, these are looking good. There we go. And I use milk chocolate chips. Let's grab mine. We'll tuck this one in and we'll pretend we didn't bite into it. So here you go, friends. Chocolate chip pancakes. Oh, they smell unbelievable. There you have it. Scratch made pancakes. Just so you know, I'm only down a half a cup and I've already made 6 pancakes. So I'm willing to bet this will make 12. This will at least make about 15 pancakes if they're little. If they're about that size. If you want to make them bigger, of course, it'll make about 8. Enjoy. For more of me, you can find me at cookwithmeg.com. And until next time, please remember, we are awesome. Clean those kitchens, and we will see you soon.